Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Land to Lots podcast. My name is Carter Froelich, and it's great to be before you again here today. And today I get to welcome to the stage one of my good friends and somebody I've been working with for a lot of years, Jeff McQueen, a good friend of mine, and the president of Shea Homes Active Lifestyle Communities. Jeff, welcome to the stage.
Hey, Carter. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great to see you. Even though we live in the same community, we have to see each other on a podcast. So
Yeah, I missed you at the gym this morning. I thought I might run into you.
yeah, I know. Well, I switched gyms, so
Oh, you did?
yeah. But that's a whole nother story, but we'll get into that one later. Hey, Jeff, before we get started, maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, the various positions you've held at Shea, and how you ultimately led the co-founding of the Trilogy division of Shea Homes, because our topic obviously will be on active lifestyle communities today, and I can't wait to dig into that. But I think it'd be really beneficial for our listeners to know a little bit about the path you took at Shea Homes and then ultimately Trilogy.
Yeah, thanks, Carter. So I've been here since May of 1999. So I'm in my 26th year. And I came over here with Rick Andreen, who led the division for the first 15 years we were together. And, the Shays had purchased a company called UDC Homes. You might remember them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they bought UDC for a couple reasons. They bought them to replenish lot supply in their key markets that they were in California and Arizona. But they also bought them because UDC had kind of a fledgling active adult business at the time. And Roy Humphreys, Shea's CEO then, wanted to move the business in a customer for life strategy into the active adult space with the baby boom generation kind of emerging. And so, he went out and sought to bring in new leadership to basically take those assets and come up with a brand concept that could fit into the marketplace and be differentiated from what the two big publics at the time that were in the space were Del Webb, which was an independent publicly traded company, and then Lennar had a decent sized active adult business, mostly called Heritage. And so we came in and, put together a concept and pitched it to the Shays on how we wanted to, differentiate ourselves from the industry. We probably can talk about that later when you ask me questions about the space. But, so in the context of the 25 years, I came in and led land acquisitions, did that for several years, and took over as the chief financial officer, then moved into kind of the chief operating officer, running all the day-to-day business. And then when Rick moved on to do something different, I took over a decade ago to be the president of the division.
Yeah, no, that's great. So part of what I'd like to talk about, because you've worn a lot of hats, and maybe we can dig into some of the finance side, the operation side, obviously strategy. You said something right now that just really struck me, and it's the whole concept of customer for life. I had not heard that before, but what a fabulous concept. I mean, because I see a lot of the builders just saying, okay, we're an entry level, and then we're kind of done with them. But Shea's taken a different perspective on that. Could you just elaborate a little bit, primarily for me, because I just want to learn a little bit more about that concept and that strategy.
Yeah, look, we really view ourselves as sort of above the commodity business of providing housing, and really, we differentiate ourselves, through design and quality and the human interaction with the guest and ultimately the home buyer member experience. And so, when you deepen your relationship with people in such a way, they become fans of what you do. And so when they're out looking for different means of housing as their life changes, and life changes are really what drives housing need.
Yeah.
And so you typically you come together as singles, you get married, you want a house, you might have a child, you might have a couple children, you need a bigger house, you might get a promotion at work, you can move up into kind of a second move up home or a luxury home. And look, as you age in place and your kids then leave the house, you become an empty nester, you start thinking differently about the house that you raise your kids in. And oftentimes people uh, want to stay in the same general community, but they want to downsize and get
Yeah.
more of a lock and leave, lower maintenance kind of home. And so that's kind of the customer for life strategy. And then it even extends beyond for sale housing, because actually, the Shea family is a large owner and operator of apartment communities as well. And so we
Mhm.
actually capture the customer before they even buy a home in our apartment communities.
Yeah. Wow. And obviously the Shays have a great history, and I think they were uh, some of the contractors or led the construction of the Hoover Dam, if I'm not mistaken. Is that accurate?
Yeah. The heritage of the company goes back into the 1800s, actually
Oh my
1881.
God.
They
Yeah.
started as a plumbing supply services business up in Portland, Oregon. They migrated down into California. They were civil engineers by trade, and yeah, they've done some iconic projects. So they did the shoring of the Hoover Dam. They were the lead contractor there, the seven general contractors who oversaw the building of that iconic place here up on the border of our state. And then
Yep.
they also did the shoring and the footings for the Golden Gate Bridge. They've done most of the tunneling work for Bay Area Rapid Transit. They've been doing tunneling out in LA for their expanding underground subway system. They've done a lot of tunneling back for like the DC Metro.
Yeah.
They did they did a big deep sewer line project in Manhattan. They did the tunnel for the new East Side train that they just put in Manhattan a few years ago. So yeah, that was kind of the heritage of the business.
Yeah, well, and I'm digressing for a little bit, but I remember being in the eighth grade watching a show saying they said it couldn't be done, and they were talking about the construction of the Hoover Dam.
Yeah,
And I decided at that point I wanted to be a civil engineer until I found out that all the math that was required. So I just ended up becoming a CPA instead. So I just had to add and subtract, that kind
yeah, yeah.
of.
Well, we're really lucky. Like Peter Shea, who runs JF Shea now, he's a
Yeah.
civil engineer by trade. Really smart person. It's really just great that the leader of the organization still carries
Yep.
on with that aptitude, and
Yep.
it's pretty cool.
Well, you said a lot of things that I'm going to ask you questions on. Before we get going, and for those that may not be familiar with the Trilogy brand, could you just explain a little bit about Trilogy, the markets you serve, the demographic you're going after, as it relates specifically to active adult or active lifestyle? And I have a question about the nomenclature about that as well. So,
Yeah, sure. Look, we view ourselves, and I think that the market views us, both the consumer market and the real estate market, like the developer market,
mhm,
views us as really a premier brand in kind of the
mhm,
lifestyle community space. Largely, our business is we build highly intensive lifestyle communities, but we generally target an empty nester demographic. That would
mhm,
be a pre-retiree, a retiree, could be a second home buyer. The bandwidth of our customer in these communities ranges from the low 50s into the mid to high 70s, with kind of the
mhm,
sweet spot in the late 50s to mid to late 60s. Our average age
mhm.
is in the low 60s. um, so yeah, so that's our business. We view ourselves, and I think the market views us as a premier developer, executor of li- lifestyle resort communities.
Yeah. And you're in multiple different markets from the Northwest to Florida to the Carolinas. And could
Mhm.
you describe, because when I used to think of active lifestyle, I thought about Arizona, I thought about Florida, maybe California, but that was about it. People are going to
Yeah.
retire to the Sun Belt, but that's no longer the case, is it? What's your experience, Joe?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Carter. So we operate these communities today in 8 states. So we're in Washington, Idaho, Nevada, all throughout California, Arizona
Mhm.
in the West, and then back in the Mid-Atlantic, as you pointed out, in the Southeast, we're in Virginia, North Carolina, and Central Florida. And then we actually have projects coming to Northern Colorado
Wow.
in the Houston marketplace. So we're
Yep.
expanding next year into Colorado and Texas. Those projects are in development today. And look, I would tell you that we live in Arizona here, obviously, and you think about we call them snowbirds here, and
Hmm.
back east, obviously, you have a similar phenomena going on with Florida, and you got a bunch of people that seek out sunshine either for a second home or for a permanent relocation. But I think what we have found out is that for every one of somebody that might live in Seattle that might pick up and move to Arizona or Palm Springs or Las Vegas, those would be the kind of primary markets for a Seattleite that would
Yeah.
relocate. Look, there's another 4 or 5 of them that actually want to stay in Seattle. So it's only like 20
Yeah.
plus or minus percent of the people that actually pick up and relocate. So there's
Yeah.
a whole business to serve the aging in place demographic that actually want to stay in the same locale where they raise their family, where they have their social connections, their spiritual connections, and they just enjoy life there. And
Yeah.
oftentimes there's family there, and they want to be close to family.
Yeah. And has that been, at least from my perspective, and I just touch on your space and we work on some projects together, but I hear more and more about that as a desire for uh, the connections that one has to the place that they brought up, raised their families, they worked, etc. Do you see that continuing, or is everybody just going to pack up and move to Arizona? Yeah.
No, look, I believe that the baby boom generation, and as we move into Gen X, I
Hmm.
believe they're significantly more connected to their family than the
Hmm.
generation, the silent generation above them. And not that they weren't connected to their family, but I think that they could pick up and relocate and kind of live their life. And I really think that.
Yeah.
The current generation really is engaged with their family and they want
Yeah.
to be in and around their family. So, they can do that a couple ways. They can buy kind of a multi-generational place of affluence, say, in, a resort community where the kids and the grandkids can all come kind of meet together, or they can, locate closer or nearby where the kids and the grandkids live. And, we see that as a very strong trend today.
Yeah. Yeah. And now Shea and your title is the president of Shea Homes Active Lifestyle Communities. Now, and when you were talking about your demographic, it ranges from 50 to high
Yeah,
60s,
late
low
70s. Yeah.
70s. You didn't say it's 55 plus. So are there any age requirements in your community, or are they maybe just in some offerings, but not all? I just wanted to zero in on
Yeah.
what are the age requirements, if I can use that term, or not.
Yeah, so look, back in the beginning when we started this business, we were really the first ones to kind of go outside the 55 plus box. So like,
Hmm.
Del Webb and Heritage, which was a U.S. Homes brand, which Lennar acquired, they were strictly 55, 55 and older communities. And we did a lot of market research and we believed that we could cast a wider net in talking with folks that we believe there was then and there is today about 20% of the demographic that's say 55 and older that's seeking a new house will consider living in a 55 plus or what they view as an active adult community. But we
Uh-huh.
believe there was another 10 or 15% that was open-minded to basically
Yeah.
exactly how a 55 plus community might live, but didn't necessarily have the age qualification and the age restricted. So we started designing communities that look and felt exactly like a 55 plus community, but they just weren't age restricted. And
Yeah.
so we started that here in Arizona and we've executed a whole bunch of communities like that. We did run into a challenge though, in that when you're not age qualified, you can't there's some housing discrimination laws and you
Yeah.
can't actually target a buyer. And so there's some marketing advantages actually to be age qualified. So we
Yeah.
found ourselves even in the communities where we weren't age qualified in totality, we've come back and age qualified certain neighborhoods within that community because we found that there's a certain
Gotcha.
demographic that actually wants
Yeah.
to be confident that they're on a street that might not have somebody else's kids living on it. And it helps us from a marketing perspective because we can actually target that demographic.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, and a lot. Some of your we're going to talk about, what is the sweet spot for a trilogy community, but I'm familiar with some of your communities that are in larger master plans. So how does that concept then translate into a larger master plan? I gotta believe that that would be great for Shea and then also great for the master plan because you're offering multiple different lifestyles within this resort setting. Any comments on that?
Yeah, no, look, we nest inside master plans super great
Yeah,
because master plans are basically providing an extensive array of housing really for kind of all populations. And there's a lot of diversity, and so we're just another form of diversity within a master plan. And
yeah,
our demographic can nest adjacent to a younger demographic, which could include family or not. But then when they, go out and use the local grocery stores and the restaurants, you have diversity of human population, right? It's not segregated like
yeah,
kind of the original Sun
yeah,
Cities were, that were miles outside of town, and you go to the restaurant and it's basically only people from Sun City. And so
yeah.
that's the beauty of being inside a master plan is, it's still a diverse population base from an age perspective.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just belabor the active adult concept a little bit more because it's my understanding that for 13 consecutive years, Trilogy by Shea Holmes, it has been, the top rated and most trusted active adult resort communities, and which, I mean, that says a lot to what you were saying earlier about your brand, about your product, about your connection to the buyer, the connection to the community. And so, how does your definition of active I mean, all the different names. I mean, 55 plus, active adult, lifestyle community. I mean, there's so many different names, but and how are you different than the competition? If I can use that as it relates to some of the other offerings that some of the publics and others are offering.
Yeah, look, I think that at our core, we're different in a couple ways. I think that when you go out and you look at our amenity campus, I think
Mhm.
that we are an edge above what the competition does in terms of just thoughtfulness and land planning, and then
Mhm.
the fit and finish of the club and the execution. And then one of the things that we brought into the industry was that there were golf grills previously at active adult communities that had a golf course, but we brought in basically a high quality main street level restaurant
Mhm.
into the center of our club experience, knowing that
Yeah.
look, not everybody plays golf, but everybody likes to go out and eat dinner. And so whether
Yeah.
you're eating dinner with your spouse or with
Mhm.
friends, or with a collection of single people, that kind of becomes the hub for our
Yeah.
amenities. So that's a big differentiator for us. And then look, we also execute a programmatic, high touch lifestyle program that's like being at a resort, and that's significantly different than a lot of our competition, which builds very nice clubs, not maybe quite to the level that we do, but they're very
Mhm.
nice. But then what they do is they hand them over to the HOA, or they have a HOA management company run them, and they just don't feel like a resort. It's not the concierge level high touch service that you might get when you're on vacation, and that's the lifestyle that we deliver to our members at Trilogy, which is a differentiated execution from the marketplace. And we have a in-house hospitality management company called Blue Star Resort and Golf that does that for us. It's
Mhm.
comprised of a bunch of former hotel folks that know how
Yeah.
to deliver that lifestyle, and we,
Yeah.
we think that's a big differentiator. And then look, on the soft side, we have amazing people that work for us. The reason that we've been noted is ever since Life Story Research started that survey, the
Yep.
reason that we won the most trusted builder, every year that they've done that survey, is because we have amazing people that work on our team that treat our members with
Yeah.
just a high touch. Right, every guest that comes in is viewed as a VIP, like they're our family, and we give them an incredible tour of the community. And then obviously when they choose to build a home from us, there's a high touch communication process, and that's what earns the trust of the customer.
And you hit a lot of different things, and I'm just thinking back on some of the conversations I've had with some of the publics, and they said, "You don't understand. We're home builders." But what I'm hearing you say here, you're a home builder, but you're more than that. You've been talking about your clients as guests. So really, I mean, you're bringing that whole hospitality feel into, yes, you're building community, yes, you're building homes, but it's more than that. You're building community through both physical and social connections. And
Yeah,
and
we view ourselves as a hospitality company,
yeah,
and the means to the end is to buy a home in one of our communities. But we start with hospitality first, and we're very hospitable to the people when they
yeah.
first come out and explore what we're all about, because that gives them a notion, that we're different and that this is a place of hospitality. And yeah, we are a home builder, but that's sort of secondary.
Okay. And so you mentioned a couple things. We talked about amenities. We talked about golf courses. I'm going to get into that. We talked about lifestyle and some of the soft programming. But when well, I'm going to back up and we're going to kind of take some of the questions as if we're looking at a development, and then we're going to go from raw land to the actual social uh, engineering of the experience. So uh, when you're looking at a community or new opportunities, be it on the West Coast or the East Coast or anywhere in between, what is the sweet spot for a Shea Trilogy community?
Well,
Is there?
first of all, it starts with location, and so
Yep.
we want to be in places that our customer wants to be in, and so
Mhm.
we're constantly doing research and trying to figure out where our customer is considering living, and so it's got to be a great geographical location, first of all, that's attractive to either people that are living nearby that want to age in place and move there, and or it could be a migratory market, right, where our
Mhm.
customers move into, and so that's kind of paramount, and then from there, we want to be we consider factors like airports, hospitals, restaurants,
Mhm.
grocery. How far are we from those various services, so that our customer is used to live in a pretty convenient lifestyle, and
Mhm.
we know that they have certain constraints, and so we kind of measure when we're looking at pieces of property that might be a little bit out of town, how those things might factor in.
Okay. And what about does cost of living, property taxes, any of that stuff get into it at all, or is it just more, hey, location close to a major MSA, great connectivity to health and to air transportation? Uh,
Yeah,
because
look, I
most of
think it.
yeah,
I mean, it does, but first of all, if we have a great area that people want to live in, you
yeah,
can kind of figure out the rest. Like if you said, "Hey, is property taxes your key driver and whether you're going to go
yeah,
to a place or not?" You'd say, "I'm not actually ever going to build a community in California, right?"
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's really not your demographic anyway. I don't think that has to necessarily worry about that.
yeah. Look, I mean, I think you're right, and if our California business is
Mhm.
predominantly made up of people living in California,
Yeah,
not people
yeah,
migrating into California, right? So they already have a lot of equity in their homes, and
mhm,
oftentimes they're actually, taking a $3 million property and converting it into, say, $1 million
yeah,
property or $1.2 million property,
yeah.
and so they're actually, with Prop 13 over there, they're no worse off in terms of tax base.
Yeah, absolutely. And so are you typically paying cash for the land? Are you taking it down over time? Is there any transaction structure that works better for you? Any preference on that? And I'm having you put on your COO, CFO hat right now.
Look, I would tell you that the best structure for us is one that is synergistic with uh,
Hmm.
what works what works good for the seller. And
Yeah,
so we can do everything. We can pay
yeah,
cash, we can develop raw land, we can do late stage entitlements. We can put all the heavy infrastructure in and take it all the way through, home sites and homes. We can also work with an established local developer that actually wants to put the infrastructure and wants to
Yeah.
develop the lots. And sometimes we even have partners that stay in through the home building. And so
Yeah.
it's really trying to seek to understand from the seller what they're trying to accomplish with their land holdings. And then, we start there first and build a deal that's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah. That's great. So we found our land in a great location. We've structured our transaction. Now let's assume that we're putting in the infrastructure. How do we balance and how do you look at the cost of putting in all of the infrastructure and the amenities in such a way to create the vision of the community? Are you building it all? What are you considering building as it relates to still keeping the product in the uh, between the guidelines of your pricing and then the ongoing operations and maintenance of those facilities, HOA fees, et cetera. How are you balancing that?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, infrastructure's pretty well defined typically by the jurisdiction, and
Mhm.
we'll put in whatever kind of infrastructure is necessary to get us to say the first phase of home sites and the club parcel, and
Mhm.
then there's really no benefit in doing anything kind of broader than that, and we would
Mhm.
just extend that kind of as the community builds. I think that's pretty typical
Yep.
way to think about developing a master plan community. And then in terms of the amenities, what we want to get is a significant uh, piece of the amenity built up front, and then a story of what's going to be here over time. And one of the things that we're sensitive about is it's better actually. There's a few reasons not to build it all up front.
Yep.
First of all, if you build it all up front, it's a larger, longer term community. The spaces actually aren't that animated, and they kind of feel empty. And
Yeah.
when you go to a restaurant feels so much better when you got to actually wait maybe 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes to get your
Yeah.
table and the place is buzzing, right? And you feel like, hey man, I'm at an awesome place. It's not quite as a great experience when you go in and it's half empty or a third empty. And so it's the same thing with like a fitness class. When you go and do a fitness class, a group exercise class, you want to be in there with like 12 or 15 people, not 3 or 4 people. And
Yeah.
we're social beings. We want to be around other people and have a good time. And so we curate our spaces and kind of plan out our spaces so they're not overcrowded, but they are busy and they're full. And so
Mhm.
it's a better lifestyle for our members that live there, and it's a better story when we're bringing guests through the discovery
Yeah.
journey that they can see these spaces that are full of people having a great time, and then we'll add additional amenity buildings on as communities mature.
Yeah. Sorry. And my parents lived in a retirement community named to go unnamed, and they didn't have a restaurant. And this was their second one. And the first one, they had a clubhouse restaurant. Everything was great. The second one, not so much, out in the sticks a little bit more. And there was no place to go to that end. There was a golf course and a clubhouse, but no place to get a nice meal. And it really showed. So when you're building your your upfront infrastructure, you have your welcome center. Are you putting that restaurant in day one, even though, or are you expanding it over time and may have a smaller offering to begin with and then constructing it?
Yeah, a lot of times what we'll do, it really depends on kind of where the community is located and what
Yeah.
kind of scale of absorptions that we envision. But if we don't put the restaurant in up front, we will put some sort of working cafe in up front
Yeah.
where you can come get a coffee, you can come get lunch, you might be able to get a pizza, and then we'll have a light fare for the evening. And so we can run happy hours out of there. So it's a socially engaging place, or
Yeah.
over breaking bread and tipping a glass together. And so yes, we always will have some form of F&B into our community as early as we possibly can erect a physical amenity building. And even before the buildings are erected, we're animating and delivering lifestyle to our first buyers while they're actually in backlog. We run multiple events a week. We do pop-up events. We do them in the
Yeah.
model homes. We do them in the sales centers. We go off site to restaurants. So we'll go to wineries or breweries or all kinds of places where people can, get together and socialize. And so we actually build that experience in to prior to when even our physical amenities are open on site.
And is that all through your Blue Star, operations? Are they the ones that
Yes.
are handling that?
It is, and then they partner up obviously with our sales leadership,
Yeah.
community leadership, and teams, and work with those folks. So we always have a lifestyle director hired and on property, 6 months before the amenity opens, so that we can work with our early adopters. And they're the early adopters have a spirit amongst them because they're kind of that first group, the first 20, 30, 40 households that buy in a community
Yeah.
that are so amped up and so excited to move in,
Yeah.
and they're there kind of before anything's built, and the camaraderie and the spirit amongst those people is just incredible. And so
Yeah.
we like to connect in with that, and really have an amazing time, hosting them on their kind of journey of a new way to live.
Wow. And I'm going to talk a little bit about amenities now. So I remember back in the day, golf course, workout facility, everything was golf courses. And for the really, uh, what is the interplay of golf right now in the lifestyle community experience? Important, not important? Is it locational? Is it demographic? Uh, what has been the change as it relates to the view of golf courses? And second question, what has been your switch in the amenities that you've seen over your tenure at Shea?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's start with golf. So we've built, owned, operated many golf courses. We've also done a lot of trilogy communities that don't include golf, and it really
Mhm.
kind of depends on the location, the piece of land that we're looking at as an opportunity. And if we're nesting in someone else's master plan community,
Yep.
oftentimes there's not a choice to do a golf course for us. And
Yep.
so we'll partner up with local golf courses in the area, and we'll still have a men's and a women's golf club, and we'll still
Yep.
go off site and we'll play golf. And so we feed into that. If you think about our demographic, probably about 20 plus or minus percent of those that kind of seek out our kind of community are actually kind of active golfers.
Yeah.
And so 80% of the demographic that's buying into these communities actually aren't real highly participative users of the golf courses. What the golf courses provide to that demographic or to the clientele there that isn't an active golfer is its green space, right? It's
Yeah.
naturally beautiful space
Hmm.
that makes them, just feel more comfortable in the place that they're living. And so where we don't have golf, we're always trying to find kind of natural open space that we can weave in. So we've built communities around
Yep.
lakes, we built communities in and around forests. And so finding places where we can bring nature into the community and adjacent to people's home sites is important to us where we don't have golf.
Yeah.
But we're not
And,
afraid to tackle golf.
mhm.
We're looking at golf course communities now, and COVID brought sort of a whole new enthusiasm in our country around golf. I mean, the whole golf business is exploding. There's way more demand today amongst golfers, even within our demographic. The women have really stepped up and want to play golf in these
Yeah.
households today, and so we're finding solutions for them.
And are they the standard golf courses we would think back in the day with the standard yardage, or are they more of a executive level building around an activity node where you can get beer, breakfast, coffee, that kind of thing, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, no, I think it's both and. I think, look, for the 20% of the people that want golf, the
Hmm.
the short, 9-hole par three course is innovative, it's fun, but that's not what they want to go play. They want to go play a championship caliber 18-hole
Yeah.
golf, right? And even the spike in golf enthusiasm we've seen since COVID, that's more centered around, a full length championship golf course.
Okay.
And but that said, we love to do the 9-hole courses or the 12-hole courses because actually those engage the 80% of the people that are the non-golfers. They're also
Yeah.
amazing for extended family and grandkids, and you can go out there in bare feet or flip flops and just have a really good time. You might only play 5 holes. You split a burger, have a beer. It's
Mhm.
it's an amazing way to spend an afternoon.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned COVID. Were there any learning experiences that have changed the way you look at community and creating social spaces and activities that came out of COVID?
I don't know if we were doing anything different out of
Mhm.
COVID. I think that what we learned is more than anything, we've known this. But look, I mean, our people are social animals.
Yeah,
People want to
yeah,
be around other people that they like, that they want to spend time with. And that's what we offer in these
yeah,
communities. And, as people's households change and, their maybe friends move away that they were, that they came to know through their kids, through the school relationships or their work relationships as kind of their work environment changes, oftentimes their social network begins to shrink in the neighborhoods that they live in. And
yeah,
we offer an amazing opportunity to come in and join a whole group of people that moved here to pursue kind of a new social experience.
yeah,
And so, depending on where you lived in the country, I mean, COVID kind of segregated all of us, right?
yeah,
And we all want to be together.
yeah,
And so, we thrive on that at Trilogy, and so our communities are around creating opportunities for people to connect, socialize, be together, and kind of find your kin inside Trilogy, and live together.
yeah. And I was getting ready to look at all of your social programs that you have, but you have the Explorer 360, the Barrel Masters, the Afterburn, the Dr. Amy. I mean, there's all sorts of different programs that you offer to create those social bonds. Could and the physical infrastructure is one thing. You can see it, touch it, feel it. Could you talk a little bit about the evolution of the social infrastructure, to your point, bringing together and connecting and creating that community that ultimately has led to you guys being the top rated resort builder 13 years running?
Yeah, yeah. So look, we're always trying to find things that our customers want to do. We do lots of survey work with them. We live out there with them in the communities, obviously. We build these things over a long time. We got Blue Star that's living in daily with them in the amenity spaces. And so we're trying to understand what they want to do. And so,
Mhm.
like for example, Explore 360, it has a couple different components. One is we put together 52 local curated trips that
Mhm.
you can go do in a day or a weekend. And so
Mhm.
you take Arizona, and we change it up every couple of years, but we curate basically 52 different trips that people could do to kind of go explore our. The other part of Explore 360 is trips around the world. So we take couples, singles, groups of people out of the different trilogies that put them together in kind of an affinity travel program, and connect them with incredible tour operators and take them to places all over the globe. And these can be hiking trips, biking trips, uh, cruises, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and incredible. You mentioned solo, and this is one of the questions I wanted to ask. When I think of an active adult community, I think of my wife and I, going into a Shea trilogy community, and but there's a lot of singles,
Mm.
that want that type of lifestyle too. Are you seeing that becoming a bigger demographic of who's moving into your communities? And if so, are you building differently for them or giving them different offerings, like maybe a patio home as opposed to a single
Mm.
family? Could you just touch on that, Jeff?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and singles actually is the fastest growing sort of sub demographic inside of the 55 and older
Hmm.
household makeup. And we provide an amazing opportunity for single people to come in
Yeah,
and connect, with a lot of people and kind of pursue their dreams in life. And we find that
single women are very outgoing and
Hmm.
interested in, making a change to their life and, finding our lifestyle very attractive and love living inside Trilogy. I wish we could find a way to connect with the single men, but we'd love to get them out to explore because we do think we provide an amazing campus for them in their life too.
Yeah.
And in terms of the second part of it, yeah, we think about the single folks all the time, and it's one household, and so we're trying to design product that's smaller, that's a little
Yeah.
bit more cost effective for a single household to get access. They also don't need all the real estate in the space, and we find that actually living with closer together provides them some security and comfort. And so sometimes, our
Yeah.
attached product or our alley load product is pretty attractive for the single demographic, not only for price point, but just kind of the security and the comfort of living closer to people.
Yeah. No, that's real interesting. Well, we're starting to get close to our time, and the question I always like to ask is over your tenure in the business, and in your tenure in the active adult industry, what has been your greatest learning experience to date, Jeff? And you could pick two. If you
Yeah,
want.
look,
Yeah.
I think the Great Recession was a pretty good wake up call and learning experience. That was tough to go through, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we work really hard on building a great team and engaging with our guests and our members, and but at the end of the day, the market is so powerful, and the market has significantly more control over our fate than even ourselves sometimes. And I think
Yeah.
the recession taught us that.
Yeah.
And so we got to be humble and we got to kind of ebb and flow with the marketplace. And, it's been a really up and down marketplace over the last several years. I mean, I remember back just in 2018, the Fed increased rates, it kind of stalled
Mhm.
housing demand. And
Yeah.
then in 2019, it picked back up again. And then come March of 2020, COVID hit, and, everybody, we didn't, not only did we not get any traffic, but people canceled out of their homes. And then by
Yeah.
June, people were lined up, trying to
Yeah.
buy homes. And then you go to, May of 22, rates started climbing again. And it kind of softens the housing market. And, we've been kind of in a lackluster market the past couple of years. So,
Yeah. And
just the effect of the marketplace.
and that's a good question. And I wanted to, one of the questions I had that I didn't ask you, are most of your buyers cash buyers, or are a lot of them taking out a mortgage? And what would be the split between that if you were to guess?
Yeah, so I would tell you historically, it's about 30% cash,
Mhm.
70% finance, and then with those that buy cash, put down pretty big down payments. So 30, but those that finance are putting down 30%, 35% down payments. Look,
Yeah.
I think our demographics pretty astute financially, right? And
Yeah.
and there's not many tax deductions left. And the interest on a mortgage is one of the tax deductions that still remains on
Yeah.
Schedule A. And
Yeah.
so, while many of our people could pay cash, I think that, they're financing for a fair interest rate. They're writing the interest off and they're keeping their cash invested in equities and other investments. And it's probably a good kind of discipline for them.
Yeah. And has Shea been paying down some of the rates on mortgages, or are you not doing that?
No, we've tried that at Trilogy. We actually find that it doesn't really move the customer
Move it
that
in.
much in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what we have found is that actually we have lost over the past couple of years some of the business that normally would finance. And so actually in the past
Yeah.
2 years, our cash percentage has moved up to the uh, kind of high 40% range. So we're in the 47, 48% cash buyer now. And it's not because more people are choosing to pay cash because of high rates. It's actually that the people that were relying on
Mhm.
financing have gone away and they're not buying today, whether it's a lock-in effect or high
Yeah.
rates or a combination
Yeah.
of the two. We've sort of lost that part of the business.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. One more question, and then
Mhm.
I got two for you, Jeff. I would be remiss to not ask you a special district question. So
Of course.
I remember sitting in with you and Rick at your offices, and we were talking about the villages and how are they financing everything. And this goes back years ago. And so last thing I looked at, villages, they on average with their CDDs, and they're pulling out about 33,000 net per door on their active adult communities.
Mhm.
What is Shea's view or your view as it relates to the use of special districts? Good thing, bad thing? Does it impact absorption, price, and pace? Just general thoughts.
Yeah, look, we've done lots of projects with districts.
Hmm.
We have many projects without districts. It's kind of a function of the local jurisdiction that you're
Yep.
in, and the appetite for districts, and where there's an appetite for districts and districts are available, it also often factors into the land price, right?
Yep.
Land
Hmm.
sellers are aware that you can use district financing. And frankly, in order to get to a deal structure that might work, by necessity, you kind of use
Yep.
district financing on property. I think $33,000 a door seems kind of reasonable. I
Hmm.
think that there's some districts in California that are pushing up into the
Yeah.
65,
Yeah.
$75,000 a door, and
Yep.
we're in one of those, and it's a little more challenging, frankly.
Yeah.
That's a lot of annual carry by the
Yeah.
homeowners that we're pushing forward, and I think it affects the psychology and the absorptions.
Yeah. I would agree. And that's the first thing we look at. Where are we vis-a-vis the market?
Mhm.
And do we have a better story to tell? Yes or no? And that's where our recommendations start coming in. Uh, Last question. Is there anything you would like to share with the audience as it relates to your space, active adult, the future? Any closing comments, sir?
Uh, we really love our space. We think we've built a really exciting business here around this customer and what we offer to the customer. We think we have an amazing team. We love our partner in Blue Star, and we just really want to keep
Mhm.
doing more of the same. As I shared earlier, we're expanding into northern Colorado and Houston, and
Mhm.
that's because our customers asking us to go there. We do a lot of demographic research, and
Mhm.
we're finding places that we think there's a shortage in supply of what we do against the demand of the consumer, and so we're
Yeah.
just going to kind of keep doing what we do. And we're not a publicly traded company. We don't really have any growth ambitions.
Yep.
We just want to do really great. We want to build really awesome communities and treat people, with respect and build a trusting relationship, and, just keep doing that.
Yeah. Jeff, thanks for taking the time. And if you're okay with it, I'm going to include all of your contact information in the show notes. Should anybody care to reach out to Jeff and may have an idea for a trilogy community in your master plan, I'm sure Jeff will take the email.
Yeah,
So,
for
and
sure.
yeah, would you be all right with that?
Absolutely.
And then yeah, we're going to have to talk about maybe having you move to the next gym. Uh,
Well, or
so
you
we can
just
work
could
out
come
together.
back. You could come back, Carter.
Yeah. Okay. Jeff, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And that concludes another episode of Land to Lots podcast.
All
Thank you,
right.
Jeff.
Thanks, Carter. Appreciate it.
You have been listening to the Land to Lots podcast with Carter Froelich. Follow us wherever you find your podcasts to never miss a new episode.